Good morning. Good morning. Good people of God, I hear much conversation, and that is wonderful. It sounds joyful. It sounds intense. That is also wonderful. And now, may I invite you to end said conversation so that we may gather and focus our attention on this time of fellowship and worship and community. All right. So one last time I say good morning. Good morning. For those who are new here, and I do see a couple of new faces, which always brings me joy, we always start our time of worship here at Wedgewood the same way. There is something to be said about the beauty of ritual. And so we begin with the extravagant welcome.
Apologies, we have a new system.
Right.
It's not linking, so we can't get this people.
Gotcha. Okay, so what I'm going to do is invite you guys to talk quietly amongst yourselves for just 1 second, and I'm going to go grab some old bulletins, because the call to worship on there is the same. So I'll be right back. But just know, yes, we are in the process of upgrading our system, which is really exciting, but they are giving us a tutorial on it on Wednesday. So in the meantime, we're kind of like, yeah, okay, so I'll be right back. Oh, that's nice. All right. If you could share the lights, looking right back, going to our work. If you notice right on the front, it says extravagant welcome, so you might have some little to share.
But you do say it every day.
Okay. All right. How many more do we need? Raise your hand if we still need an extravagant welcome. 1, 2, 3. All right, got one here. Ben, do you have it? All right, there you go. Cindy, you got one? No. All right. Yes, no problem. So just remember that this is nothing else about this sermon applies today except for just this first top part. So, do you have one? Do you have one? You do. Okay. You're going to need this. All right. And if anybody else needs some, you just have to share with a friend. We're doing the buddy system today. Sharing is caring. All right. So, I will be the voice of the one, and you all will be the voice of the many. We are all welcome here.
Welcome to the church that works for peace, justice, equality, and care of Mother Earth.
An extravagant welcome to each of you because of your gender, identification, sexual orientation, ethnicity, economic situation, physical and mental challenges, doubting or believing, being depressed or full of joy.
We are a community of curious and creative spiritual seekers, striving to learn and embody the way of Jesus and other religious leaders.
Like Jesus, we focus on the plundered and the marginalized as we try to address the major issues of our day.
One of the ways we seek to heal the world and ourselves is through sharing parts of our personal story.
We are all welcome here. Amen. And in that spirit of welcome, in just a moment, I will invite you to stand as you are able. And able is not just physically able, but sometimes people are in the mood to say, hey, hello, how you doing? And other times we're in the mood to just kind of sit quietly with ourselves. So stand as you are able and greet one another and just let people know, hey, I see you. I'm glad that you're here. We call this the left-handed fellowship. It's coming, I promise. Almost. We call this the left-handed fellowship in honor of Reverend Dr. Nancy Leddens, who...
I just got music. I'm ready.
Okay. Child, so much happening this morning. All right. So we call this the Left-Handed Fellowship in honor of Reverend Dr. Nancy Leddens. We had the great joy and pleasure of her being one of the mothers of the church for the last few years of her life before she died. And she was a teacher and a preacher and a storyteller and kind of a comedian, but just someone who loved and poured so much into our church. And she was the first Roman Catholic transgender priest, and even though she was excommunicated for that, she did not let that stop her from hearing the call to be her authentic self and to serve God's people, teaching, preaching, loving. But all of her life, people tried to tell her that she was supposed to be something that she was not. Even in childhood, they tried to tell her that she was supposed to be right-handed when she was in fact left-handed. And so in honor of her, we call this the Left-Handed Fellowship. So now if you will stand as you are able and willing and greet one another in love.
As I lay me down, heaven hear me now. I'm lost without a cause, after giving it my all. Winter storms have come and darkened my sun. After all that I've been through, Who on earth can I turn to? I look to you. I look to you. After all my strength is gone, in you I can be strong. I look to you. I look to you. And when melodies are gone, in you I hear a song. I look to you. About to lose my breath. There's no more fighting left. Sinking to rise no more. Searching for that open door. Every road that I take led to my regret. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. Nothing to do but lift my head. I look to you. I look to you. Yeah. After all my strength is gone, in you I can be strong. I look to you. I look to you, Lord. When the melodies are gone, in you I hear a song. I look to you. All the walls are falling, coming down on me. All the rain is falling. Set me free. Take me far away from the battle. I need you to shine on me. I look to you. I look to you. After all my strength is gone, in you I can be strong. I look to you. And when melodies are gone, in you I hear a song. I look to you. I look to you. Oh, I look to
Amen. Thank you, Ashanti. And this, no, you're right, Ben. I'm just introducing you. Thank you, Ashanti. And also, so there have been some, in the past few weeks, some conversation on, there's been lots of conversation on Facebook, but particularly for this, it's been conversation about ICE, about immigration, and some of the folks are in the congregation have been asking some questions about like what can we do and how can we be a part of what we need to know. And as you guys know, for example, like Colleen has been a part of different kind of grassroots movements to help out. But we thought, why not have Ben Snyder come and speak to us, because he would know. And so we're very grateful that Ben, who is an immigration lawyer, immigration lawyer, and just an all-around great guy, is coming up to give us a word. So thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, church.
Good morning.
Sorry.
It Okay, we're still learning. It's a process.
I'll try not to break anything else while I'm up here. As Malou said, I'm an immigration lawyer. I have no formal theological training, so I'll focus on the law here. And I'll be brief because I can't bill for this time. So, I enjoy coming to Wedgewood Church. My wife and I have been members here for about 2 years or so because we really enjoy coming together with our fellow members of this church and worshiping our Lord together. I believe God wants us to come together and wants us to commune together and to share our experience in this life together. And what we've seen recently here in Charlotte is ICE, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, pulling people apart. You see, I feel strongly that the world that God created does not have borders on it.
Amen.
And the world that God created does have families in it, mothers, fathers, couples, children, grandparents. And I believe strongly that in our world you have the law of God, that when we obey God's law, we are pursuing justice and peace and equality and coming together. And then you have man's law, the law of humans, the law of human society. And whenever the law created by human beings would tear apart or destroy a family in light of recognition, or to uphold a border which is created by man, that's putting human law above God's law, and that's sinful to me. That's what I consider sin. 2 weeks ago, the field office director for Immigration and Customs Enforcement for Georgia and the Carolinas said, "We are only following the law. We didn't obey the law. We didn't write the law. We are enforcing the law. It's our job to enforce the law. We are just following orders." And to that I say, well, if your job requires you to disobey God's law and commit sin, the solution is simple. You can find another job, I think. That's my opinion. So what's happening is that several of North Carolina's largest municipalities, including Mecklenburg County and Wake County, voted in sheriffs who have done away with the 287G program, or have alerted ICE that we are no longer participating in the 287G program. Here on his first day after inauguration, Sheriff McFadden signed a declaration of terminating the Memorandum of Understanding with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. 287G refers to Section 287, subsection G of the Immigration and Nationality Act, that literally deputizes local law enforcement officers to carry out certain duties assigned to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. In other words, if a foreign national is brought into custody at the local jail, could be for something as minor as driving without a driver's license, which if you're undocumented in the state of North Carolina, it's impossible to get a driver's license. It could be based on allegations that are unsubstantiated. These are people who are charged with a crime, not convicted of a crime. In any event, if they're brought into the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's custody, and they are identified as someone who is present in the country without current valid authorization, then they are automatically placed into deportation proceedings. The deportation process is automatically initiated without any consideration of whether or not that person has a citizen spouse, or a citizen parent, or a green card holding spouse, or citizen children, or 10 citizen children, a business, a home, or anything else. Irregardless of their ties to the country, the Sheriff's Office, under the 287G program, was obligated to automatically initiate deportation against anyone brought into custody at the Mecklenburg County Jail, regardless of their criminal record even. So, the people of Mecklenburg County, the citizens of Mecklenburg County, voted in a sheriff in the last election who ran on the platform of doing away with 287G, one of his major initiatives. So did the people of Wake County, where Raleigh is, of course. And Durham County, thank you. The Sheriff Barnes in Guilford County did away with it as well, as in an attempt to win his election. He lost, but nonetheless, he also did away with the 287G program in Guilford County. So most of the larger municipalities in the state of North Carolina have done away with 287G and said, we're not going to do your work for you, ICE. We're not ICE officers. In response to that, what someone might say in retaliation to that, Immigration and Customs Enforcement has initiated a major program of field enforcement activities. In other words, going into people's homes, setting up checkpoints alongside CMPD checkpoints, pulling people over, going into businesses, going into work sites. They've conducted a series of major raids in our immigrant communities, unlike anything that I've seen in my 7 or 8 years I've been doing this. Yeah, 7 years. Well, we've never seen anything like this before. And we're getting reports from green card holders and citizens who happen to be of a Latin American background or descent, saying that they've been approached by plainclothed officers who identify themselves as ICE and harassed. And that's simple racial profiling. Just getting questions like, is there anything in your immigration file that you wouldn't want me to see? Just outright harassment. And now, so Sean Gallagher, the field office director, came out and said, what we're doing is targeted enforcement action, which means that we have specific individuals in mind. These could be individuals who have criminal records or outstanding unexecuted deportation orders, and we're going after them specifically. But if there happen to be other undocumented individuals in the vicinity, what we call collaterals, we will also make arrests of anyone we encounter who it appears is not in the country without authorization, or was in the country without authorization. So, in the course of not this recent week, but the week prior, ICE made a total of 200 arrests in the state of North Carolina. And the field office director has not said how many of those were the targeted enforcement individuals who had criminal records, or how many were collaterals. Okay, and to be clear, you are subject to deportation if you don't have the right papers, regardless of your children, spouse, family ties, business ties, length of presence in the United States. Be here 25, 30 years. If you don't have a current green card, you can be subject to deportation, regardless of your criminal record. And oftentimes, people who find themselves subject to deportation give ICE all the evidence they need to initiate deportation. Okay? By that I mean, it's important for our foreign national, our immigrant friends and neighbors, colleagues, family members to understand that the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent applies to them. All of the due process amendments and constitutional rights apply to anyone standing on U.S. soil, regardless of their immigration status. They're not Mirandized, that's the thing. Immigration is considered civil law enforcement. It's not criminal. It is not a crime to come on a visa and then overstay the length of that visa. That is not a criminal act. Okay? But nonetheless, you are subject to immigration enforcement activity, but it's a civil violation. They're enforcing a civil administrative code. Okay? So when they make an arrest, they don't have to warn the individual that they have the right to remain silent, and what they say will be used against them in court.
That sounds like one of the prosecutors.
Okay?
That sounds like one of the prosecutors. 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 That sounds
I agree. In fact, we had a phone call earlier this week with some of the litigators from the American Civil Liberties Union in New York. Based on the reports we're getting, ICE is engaged in regular, routine abuses of our Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights of foreign nationals.
Can you test it?
That's a big question. We're looking at that. First, we need to collect some data in a consistent manner. Collect all the reports in one place and in a consistent manner. That's the first step.
Maybe a challenge if they're hiding.
Right. Folks are so fearful, they're even too fearful to come talk to someone like me. Because they don't know me from Adam, and they don't know if I'm hot. Because ICE, by the way, ICE comes out in plain clothes. ICE did a raid in Hendersonville this weekend in a work van. They had a work van complete with a ladder on top and drove to a work site, and then they came out with their SWAT gear on, says ICE on it on the back, and made their arrests. And again, we don't know who they're targeting and who are collaterals, okay? So, it's important for our foreign national friends and neighbors and colleagues and family members to understand that they do not talk to ICE. They should not talk to ICE, ever. Zip, not a single word. The only thing they should ever say to ICE is, I'm asserting my right to remain silent, and I'd like to talk to my lawyer. Because ICE, if ICE encounters an individual that they don't have evidence on yet, that's not a specific target, they don't have a picture, they don't have a warrant, they don't have an administrative warrant for that person, but this is just perhaps a darker-skinned individual who speaks Spanish and doesn't speak English very well, they have no authority. They literally don't have the authority to arrest that person. They don't have the authority to enter that person's home. They don't have the authority to stop that person's driving a vehicle. They don't enforce North Carolina state traffic law. They have no authority to pull someone over who's driving a car. And if they encounter that individual, in my experience and in our practice, 9 times out of 10, that individual gives themselves up by being a truthful, honest person, answering 2 simple questions. Where are you from? Do you have your papers? That's all the evidence ICE needs. But if they say, zip, maybe they give themselves a chance because they're arrested anyways. That's likely an illegal arrest. That's a Fourth Amendment violation, and we could suppress the evidence in that case. But this is the message that we're trying to spread. And for those who are interested in what they can do as citizens and allies who support the immigrant community, there are several organizations that are actively engaged in combating this activity. Now, I'm going to have my wife post this on Facebook. I had to disconnect from Facebook for a while because...
Or you can email it to us.
Or we'll email it to you.
We'll get it out there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, certainly. Yeah, I would, but I
Yes.
had to get off. I think that's a major quality of life improvement mechanism is getting off Facebook for a while. But I'll read them here, and if you have a pen, feel free to write them down. elrefugiostewart.org. That's E-L, refugio, R-E-F-U-G-I-O, Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, all one word, .org. That is a ministry that provides temporary housing basically temporary housing, has several beds for the Stewart Detention Center. Most of the individuals who are, I'm sorry, I know I'm running out of time. Most of the individuals who are arrested by ICE are held at a detention center. The largest detention center, immigration detention center in the country, is located in it's located in Lumpkin, Georgia, which is all the way on the far southwestern side of Georgia, near the Alabama border. It's called the Stewart Detention Center. It's out in the middle of nowhere on purpose.
Even sounds scary.
ICE prefers that their detainees do not have easy access to their attorneys and their witnesses and their family, so that's why that detention center is located out there. It's operated by the Corrections Corporation of America, a for-profit company, by the way. Anyways, so you can imagine they hardly have any hotels out there. elrefugiostewart.org provides beds for families and lawyers to go stay when they are litigating cases at the courthouse that's housed inside that detention center. elrefugiostewart.org is a nonprofit religious organization. actionnc.org, actionnc.org, just as it sounds. Action, ACTIONNC.org, is a immigrants' rights advocacy organization here in Charlotte. LSSP.org, formerly Legal Services of the Southern Piedmont, is now the Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy, but their website is still lssp.org. They are a free legal services organization, provide free legal counsel and legal services to certain individuals who are in need and not able to afford their own attorney. LegalAidNC.org. LegalAidNC.org provides the same thing. It's a free legal services agency, but they focus specifically on foreign nationals who have been victims of domestic violence and other violent crimes. NationalImmigrationProject.org, the National Immigration Project of the National Lawyers Guild, provides or is engaged in large-scale, what we call impact litigation, filing lawsuits challenging egregious civil rights violations by ICE in an effort to change the law, as well as, of course, ACLU.org, American Civil Liberties Union.org, or ACLU-NC is our state affiliate, ACLU.org, ACLU-NC.org. These are just a handful of organizations who are involved in these issues and providing direct aid and service to those who are affected by the recent ICE raids. And with that, thank you all for your attention.
So it seems to me that what we're going to do then is have you come back another time and share, because you have a lot of good information and you have a lot of passion, and so I was trying not to cut you off, but so we'll have another time soon for you to come back and do some more sharing with us if you're okay with that. Okay, perfect. At this time, we will have our children's sermon, and just go for it. Okay. We'll make it work. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Amber. Thanks,
Right. Amber is here to let you know.
Sorry. How was your week? I still learning.
But so the invitation is if you are young in a chronological age or young in spirit, feel free to come down and participate in our youth/children's sermon time. It is a both and invitation.
Cool.
You still learn.
You do.
So, and I'm still processing all the good stuff Ben said, and I'm trying to get this together in my head. But the big thing is, lately we seem to be in a season of disagreements. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You go on Facebook, there's always a disagreement. You go on Twitter, there's disagreements. Maybe not so much on Instagram. I don't know. You guys know more about Instagram than I do. People don't battle on Instagram. Oh, that's great. Maybe I should switch. Okay. That feels great. I need to be in a battle for something. But we've been in a season of disagreements. Yeah. Because as long as you're connected to somebody, we're not always going to walk the same way, the same time, all the time. You know what I mean? And that's on a big scale, and even on a small scale. In our churches, in our homes. You guys just became sisters. Do y'all agree all the time? Okay, we're going to say yes for church? Okay, never mind. All right. Hey, I have 3 sisters. We don't agree all the time.
I have 2 sisters.
Right. It's like I was honestly trying to trade one of them in for a brother. Doesn't work. But whenever you find yourself in a season of disagreement or a season of confusion, I don't know, I'm old-fashioned. I still think you can turn to this and find an answer or two. Yeah. And Jesus gives us an answer about how we deal with seasons of disagreement. And how we have to deal with, sometimes you just can't stand that person. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. So it's in the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 3. Well, I got to rewind it back a little bit. He says, don't judge, or you'll be judged. Or in the same way that you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure that you use, it'll be measured back at you.
Is that he, Jesus?
Yes, Jesus. Excuse me. Yeah. That's heavy already, right? Like,
yeah.
Makes you kind of go, ooh, I shouldn't. But this is the part that got me. He says, why do you look at the speck of dirt in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye?
How can you say to your brother, let me take that speck of dirt out of your eye, when all the time there's a plank in your own eye? Then Jesus uses some really strong language here. He goes, you hypocrite. First take the plank out of your eye, and then, check this, you'll just see clearly enough to remove the speck from your brother's eye. When we're in a season of disagreement, we got to get real about the plank that's in our eye. Our biases, our junk, our stuff. You know, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
You know, because sometimes when we're mad at somebody, we don't even know what we're mad about. We just know we're mad. They might have been the 10th person who asked you a stupid question, and then that's it. That's it. You know. Right. Or somebody cut you off in traffic, or you had a bad conversation with your mom, or whatever it is, and all of that stuff builds up, and you start getting planks. You got lumber going on all up in here, and then somebody annoys you, and all of a sudden now all you can do is focus on that little bit of speck in somebody else's eye. And Jesus is going, deal with you. Deal with you and your stuff. And then you can see clearly enough to say, hey, Marion, you got a little something going on. You know? Yeah. But somehow we become these great authorities, and we're like, you're dirty, and you're dirty, and it's funny, except when we're in that moment and we feel right. Except when we're in that moment and we feel right. And oh, don't we feel it? We're like 10 feet tall. We've got the power of the Lord, and we're going to tell somebody about their stuff. And so what Jesus says really quickly, though, just we got to work on that. Because that doesn't build communication. And as Ben already told us, we're a family. Right. And when families fight like that, it rips us apart. And we start to miss each other. And we miss parts of each other. I don't want to miss this. I don't want to miss this. I don't. I want to watch everybody grow in God. I want to be there to celebrate your victories with you. Amen. I want to be there to cry with you. You know, I want us to be able to look back and go, remember that time when we thought everything was going to fall apart and how God did it?
Want to do it.
You know, I want to be able to do those things. But if we're so worried about the specks on others and not dealing with our own lumber and letting God deal with us, we're going to miss this. We're going to miss each other. And think about it, y'all. Life's like this. Yes, we're here and then we're gone.
Yes, it is.
So our prayer this week, as we're in this season of disagreement, big, small, local, far away, is that we do like Stephen Covey says in that book, The 7 Habits of Effective People, that we seek to understand before we're understood. And that we seek to understand not through our own eyes, but through God's eyes, so that we can have compassion and empathy for each other. Amen?
Amen. Like,
You had a whole amen corner back there. I don't know if you could hear them, but they was almost speaking in tongues. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that your message was. Yes.
springboard.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So today's service, we're actually going to do a break from our normal service. So to all our visitors and those on live stream, we thank you for joining us this morning. We have some internal business to take care of and to make space for and to process and move forward together as a church. You're more than welcome to stay. However, we will definitely not be offended if you choose to come back another Sunday and leave today. For our friends on live stream, we'll actually be shutting down the live stream to make space for open and honest conversation. I'm going to put out a Zoom link on tomorrow for those of you who weren't able to be here today but still would like to participate in the conversation, for us to have another space where you're able to be involved in the conversation as well. So this